Well, hey, y'all, this is Joffrey Swait, Chief Academic Advisor at Kepler. Welcome, Kepler families, Kepler students. This is going to be a tour of our junior high department. So junior high or middle school or logic phase, you can call it whatever you like. We're going to call it the subject at hand. And the subject at hand is 6th through 8th grade, 11 through 13, 14-year-olds, those classes. And if you take a look at our website, here I am at kepler.education, one of the ways you can filter your classes is by choosing a grade option. So grade 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, or lifelong learning. And lifelong learning is definitely one worth checking out as well. But let's say that we filter for grade 6. So I can be more specific than this, but if I just run the grade 6 filter, and then I come on down, here are some of the professors that are teaching classes for grade 6. Now, very few of our classes, again, we're not a school. We are a platform for classical Christian educators to bring their classes to you. So very few of our classes are for one grade only, and some actually cover quite a gamut. So for grade 6, you'll see things like Pre-Algebra, an integrated humanities course, the great books of the last 500 years, taught by Mr. Gilmore Greco in Eugene, Oregon, beginner's German. So only 5 classes that 6th graders can take. And 6th grade, maybe a little bit of sneaking in 5th grade is about as low as we get. You'll see that beginner's German and Lingua Latina Prima both accept 5th graders. But you'll note that beginner's German actually goes all the way from 5th grade through 12th grade. Because again, we are a homeschooling platform. And so that means that not only are the families used to being flexible, but the teachers often are very used to being flexible as well. So these are the courses available to 6th grade, including Shakespeare and the History of the English Kings, taught by Mr. Griffiths. I think this is one of my absolute favorite classes. Mr. Griffiths and I had the opportunity to work together this year. So I'll show you this course. All right, so Shakespeare and the History of the English Kings is $600 for a year-long class. It meets Wednesdays for 2 hours, so Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And you'll see this Pacific time, wherever you are logging into our website from, it will show you the correct time for you. So Shakespeare and the History of the English Kings. It's a 1-credit class. It's an English course. But one of the things that I think we are outstanding at is delivering integrated humanities. Integrated education is education, and it is classical education. So even here in a course that is an English course, there's so much integration happening. And so this course explores the history of medieval England through the lens of 8 plays by William Shakespeare, covering the time period between 1399 and 1485. Students will be afforded a glimpse into Shakespeare's own time. This is one of those classes that really brings to life what students study. And Shakespeare is one of those guys and one of those subjects that a lot of people feel like you must study. You need to study. And sometimes that leads to students approaching a subject, well, not dauntlessly, let's say, and with a sense of obligation and burden. And so a class like this, which, it's setting so much context and bringing to life and forming and showing ways for students to form attachments. I'm a big fan of a class like this. So the texts are Richard II, Henry IV, Part 1 and 2, Henry V, Henry VI, Part 1, 2, and 3, and Richard III. One of the other cool things about this is that through the lens of history, we are going to be afforded a chance to read some of the plays that maybe won't be read as often, but there will be other anchors to attach to the work through because of the history angle. So I absolutely am a fan of this course. Back on the 6th grade page, I went over German and the Lingua Latina Prima courses in our language video, which we'll have a link to. Let's check out Pre-Algebra for Mr. Santos. Mr. Santos teaches both biology, science, and math on our platform. So Pre-Algebra is one of our classes that meets twice a week. This is at the discretion of the teacher. So Mondays and Thursdays for an hour and a half each. So the class is $600 a year. Why should our students study mathematics? Some might approach this question in a very practical way, considering all the applications for it in the modern world. But according to Plato, that should not be the main reason. In Book 7 of the Republic, he affirms that the students must not pursue it with an eye toward useful business as shopkeepers do. He thinks its role is much more critical. Plato believed that the study of mathematics led the mind toward pure reason and cultivated the true love of wisdom. That's from the liberal arts tradition. So it's important to note that even at the earliest grades in which students come into Kepler, this is how we are approaching education, as the formation of humans, as the search for excellence. Well, let's go ahead and filter for 8th grade. Right, we're not going to do every grade, but let's say 8th grade. And here we're going to see not only a few more classes for 7th and 8th grade, but also some of the classes that overlap between 8th and 9th and 10th. Because we're not going to let any artificial barriers stand in our way. Instead, teachers are going to decide on their own what the best age, usually, for a class that they've designed is. So by the time we hit 8th grade, we're talking about almost 30 classes available to choose from, all sorts of electives, all sorts of core classes. So from the extremely popular series of photography courses that Andrew Eads does, to Introduction to the Ancient Great Books by Tracy Leary, and she's already got a couple of sections of Intro to Great Books, ancient, medieval, whatever, sold out. There's Mr. Santos again. Logic courses. This is what many families consider, and I consider, the ideal time to be talking about taking logic courses. And then once you hit the high school years, you're focusing more on rhetoric. So let's take a look at Josiah Nance's Introductory and Intermediate Logic. Now, this course is listed as being available from 7th to 12th grade, because it does often happen that families come to classical education, they want to take logic, but their kids are a little older than what would have happened if they had been in the classical train from their young youth. But normally what the target is for 8th and 9th graders, really. Okay, so grades 7 through 12, Introductory and Intermediate Logic, meeting twice a week, $650 a year. Logic is the art of reasoning well. In this logic class, students will gain a foundation for reasoning from the truth of God, defining terms, determining the truth of statements, constructing valid arguments, identifying poor reasoning, and more. So what are the course objectives? Define terms properly, analyze statements and determine their truth values, analyze and construct valid and invalid arguments, translate arguments into normal English, from normal English into categorical syllogisms. Right, so you're learning the language of logical arguments. Write arguments, identify formal and informal fallacies, construct formal proofs, and gain an understanding of digital logic and electronic circuitry, which is a cool bonus there. And the texts are Introductory Logic and Intermediate Logic by James Nance and Douglas Wilson in the case of the first one. So there's one of our logic classes. Here is another, Formal Logic, taught by Stephen Belk. And if you're wondering why some of the pictures for the teachers don't load, that actually has strictly to do with my recording software and not to do with how nifty and fast our website is, because our website is nifty and fast. All right, so this class does meet a little later in the day. It is more for West Coast families, but Tuesday at 7 p.m. And this uses Memoria Press, so Traditional Logic 1 and 2. Well-known and popular curriculum. And Stephen Belk asks us, have you ever disagreed with an argument but had trouble putting your finger on why? Are you ever curious about the way great thinkers of the past argued? Or would you simply like to have the skills to evaluate an argument and see how someone reached their conclusion? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then this course is for you. All right, so the course objectives are: students of formal logic will gain an appreciation for logical reasoning and a broad general history of logic, which I think is very cool and is more present in this course than the first course that I highlighted. They'll also learn the 4 statements of logic, how we formulate and understand concepts, the what, how, and why of composing syllogisms, and finally, students will master the 5 most common syllogism forms, how to reduce rare syllogism forms to simpler forms, how to translate ordinary language to logical form with greater precision. I think that's one of the keys of any logic course. As a language teacher, and as someone who sometimes tests the patience of his own family and his focus on language and speech, I do think this is one of the most vital aspects of logic, right? Logic as language, logic in language. Tricky one-premise arguments, hypothetical syllogisms, classical argument forms, and the crown jewel of traditional logic, the dilemma. Okay, so sign up for the course to find out what the dilemma is. So we highlighted a couple of logic courses, absolutely the right time in your child's growth to be thinking about those courses. But I just want to scroll through and name a few other classes that I think are outstanding parts of the junior high, middle school area. For example, grammar of poetry is grades 7 through 9. That's classic junior high territory, right? So photography, grammar of poetry, pre-algebra, algebra 1, some junior high kids take algebra 2, general studio art, earth science, intermediate logic, lost tools of writing, physical science. So all sorts of fantastic options out there for you and for your kids. If you have any questions at all about what we offer for grades 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, if you have any questions about Kepler generally, zap me a line, make an appointment with me. All the links that you need will be below. The peace of Christ be upon you.